Welcome to Entanglement Radio, transcendent talk for the conscious mind. Join us for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science, new thought, and conscious healing. Explore the potential and infinite possibilities of what it means to be human with some of the best guests in radio. At Entanglement Radio, it is all connected. Now, here is your host, Angela Levesque, on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Here on OMTimes Radio Network. I'm coming to you live today from the beautiful foothills of the Rocky Mountains here in Boise, Idaho. I have another fellow Boisean for you here today. Lots of cool folks here. We have the miracle lady with us, Sora Garrett, and we're going to have an inspiring conversation on how to stay in the miracle flow. Sounds fantastic. Coming up next week, we have Barbara Marks Hubbard on the program. Yes, you heard that correctly. I'm very excited. And we're going to be talking about the subject of her latest book, which is Achieving Christ Consciousness. And just to give you a heads up, the following week will be the 23rd, and I'll be playing a fantastic replay, and I will be following up with you myself here on the 30th as we explore intentions for 2016 and talk about kind of my vision for the show and what I think is coming up in this next year. So I'm excited for that. And then at the beginning of the year, we will be back with Don Miguel Ruiz on January 2nd. So we have a whole lineup of amazing folks, including my guest today. But before we get there, if you need to get a hold of me at any time during the week, you can email me at angela@hestiahealth.com. You can find me on Facebook and on Twitter at Hestia Health and Entanglement Radio. And be sure to go to my website and find out about gift certificates. If you have something that you'd like, you have somebody in your life, you're like, what should I get them? Well, how about an intuitive reading or an energy session? Or I have some great programs coming up in January called Inspired and Empowered, as well as Conscious Weight Loss. So if you want to find out any more about that stuff, you can go to hestiahealth.com. As I said, we are talking about being in the miracle flow with Sora Garrett. So let me introduce her. Sora Garrett is a creative visionary, writer, spiritual mentor, and catalyst for a more compassionate and collaborative world. Her favorite title, other than Nana, to her 7-year-old grandson, is the Miracle Lady. She loves shining light on the small miracles that surround us every day. Sora's new book, The Miracle Keys, is about opening your heart to a life of deep happiness and lasting abundance. She believes the biggest miracle is when we are each living in shining connection with our soul's highest purpose by joyfully and generously sharing our natural gifts. So with that, I feel very honored and blessed to welcome Sora Garrett to the program. Hello, Sora. How you doing?
Hello, Angela. I'm doing wonderfully, and I was going to say that too. I feel just so honored to be here with you today. So thank you for inviting me.
Well, I'm excited to have you. I tell so many people in my life, I've lived a lot of different places, just how cool Idaho is and how cool Boise is in general. There's just so many fantastic creatives and visionaries and writers, and just we've got a cool vibe going on here, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. It seems to be erupting even more and more.
Well, today we are talking about miracles, and of course, the subject of your book, The Miracle Keys, A Conversation with an Angel. Let's start for a second, because when we hear the word miracles, sometimes people think of, God, divine intervention, such things as like going into spontaneous remission from cancer. How do you define what a miracle is?
Angela, that's a really good question, because when I started talking about miracles, I almost hesitated because I felt like that. It's like, oh, a miracle should be something that's big and that's beyond us, and that that really is not happening that often. But when I ended up, after I'd been using the word for a while, it just kept coming to me, and I just kept writing about it. And started a network around miracle giving. And when I finally looked it up about a year after I'd started using it, what it really means at its core level is wonder, opening to wonder and wonderful. And so when I started embracing it from that standpoint, being a miracle is really just opening ourselves to the wonder that's here around us.
I couldn't agree.
So,
I couldn't agree more. You actually have this little a quote by Brian Andreas in your book, and it says, "In my dream, the angel shrugged and said, 'If we fail this time, it will be a failure of imagination.' And then she placed the world gently in the palm of my hand." And as you said the word wonder, to me, the words wonder and imagination kind of go hand in hand. Do you feel the same? Because I know that quote really stuck with you and was really important in this journey of creating this book. So let's talk a minute about that.
yes, it's kind of like that quote is a little bit of my life mission, my life path is about opening myself and others to the imagination and the vision of what's possible. And, I really believe that we each are brought with an important part of the puzzle of the world of, what we could create here. And that opening to the wonder, opening to the imagination that really is naturally in each of us is how we're going to create this world. And when I practically read anything from Brian Andreas, I just feel like it's speaking right to my heart and giving me permission to really be, to really let that imagination and let that miracle come out through us. I said something to somebody the other day that the Miracle Keys is about tapping into our inner miracle. So instead of like our inner child, it's our inner miracle. And I think that's a lot of what that quote says to me. Open it up, let it out.
When I hear that quote and I think about this idea of vision and imagination, and I just, I wonder, it is really, and I like that you said the miracles inside of us, because I think we just are surrounded by messages in our culture that the answers are out there, that, if you have the best and latest technology, if you have this pair of shoes, if you have, if you follow this guru, that the answers are there. And so I always love messages that talk about, bringing it inside and bringing it inward, and then finding a way to bring our inwards and share that into the world. And so when we talk about this conversation, it'll be a failure of imagination. I just think that is such an important conversation at this time, because we're constantly being fed images on our phones, on our computers, in our televisions, our video games. Everything is just saying, here, look, and we're going to feed this to you, instead of look within and see what you can create, what you can vision. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. I don't know if I can add that much to it, but that's really what this book is all about, is slow down. And what my message really is about is that there is so much speeding up in the world and so much going on out there that and this is really what imagination is about too. It's about not looking outside of ourselves, but really peering inside to what is precious and what is unique about us that we're really to give voice to. And so, for me, part of it is about slowing down. And I always tell people part of my work is getting them to slow down and pay attention to the miracle. And part of that is about really slowing down to the still point within to find out what that imaginative spark is. And, partly that's the miracle. And then really the miracle is when we then allow it to come through us and out into the world. So it's not just one, it's not just looking inside and being on our own imaginative la journey. It's not about just sitting and keeping that all inside of us. It's really about how we take that out and show up more fully in the world, and really deliver what's in us out to create a better world.
And why do you think that's more important or more needed than ever right now?
Yeah, Barbara Marx Hubbard just flowed into my consciousness right now. I'm honored to be it's kind of like I'm her startup act. So
I love it.
what do they call that? When you put the music on, and I got to meet, I'm looking at the clock now and it's 11:11. And Barbara has been really significant to me because she was kind of a visionary before her time. And she's been speaking since she was young. And now finally, she's in her 80s and she's finally coming of age. And, somehow our world right now has accelerated to the point that, there's just so much chaos, so much kind of the balance of both dark and light. Whenever the light increases, the dark increases. And there's so much going on in the world that we're just kind of at a tipping point. And I feel like the visionaries like Barbara, and even myself, always felt like I'm kind of ahead of the curve a little bit. And, that my message isn't always taken seriously. And sometimes I felt a little bit like a Pollyanna. But I really feel like what the world needs to hear right now is about a lot of what I and other people like me are starting to say, that we do have it in us to make a difference. And we don't necessarily have to go out and do some big, huge thing. It's just how we show up every day, bringing our love, bringing our joy, bringing our compassion, to whatever is before us. And that the more that we do this, the more that, the things that are happening in the world are gonna not overtake.
We'll tip the scales in our favor. Well, when we get back, I want to talk about how this book came to be and why you resisted releasing it into the world. So we'll get to that and more when we return here with Sora Garrett. We'll be right back.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of the Inspired Parenting Radio Show, where every week we bring you empowering information from the diverse fields of conscious parenting, education, neuroscience, consciousness, health, and metaphysics to support you in nurturing the best in your children. So if you're interested in understanding what shapes your children's minds, spirits, and hearts, join me every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and prepare to be inspired.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
We're back, and if you're just joining us today, we are speaking with Sora Garrett, the Miracle Lady, and we're talking about the subject of her book, The Miracle Keys, A Conversation with an Angel. So let's talk for a moment, because you and I, we spoke a couple of days ago, and we kind of shared this experience. Let's talk about how this book came to be and why you resisted releasing it into the world. So let's start with how it came to be first.
Yeah, well, I was kind of having a writing block, and I was wanting to start again, and so I started to have a writing partner, and she was kind of encouraging me, and she just kind of said, Sora, I feel like there's a book sitting right there ready to be written, and it's going to be different than anything you've written before. It's going to come through really easily. So I listened to her, and I went away for a couple days writing retreat. And usually it takes me a couple days to warm up. And the first night I woke up at 3:00 in the morning, and that story that you shared earlier from Brian Andreas was like right in my consciousness. And this whole first chapter of the book just started flowing right through me. And I sat down and typed and typed. And I had so much fun that, I mean, I didn't have to work at it at all. I wrote the first part of the book in a couple of sittings, and it just felt too easy. And I looked at it, and it was delightful and fun, but I was wanting to write a book about generosity and how we could really make a difference in the world by being more generous. And I had this idea of what it was supposed to be. And so when the story came through, it's very whimsical, very playful. It's very simple. And in some part of me, I felt like, oh, it's too simple. I put that out there and people aren't going to take me seriously. And so I just kind of put it away on my computer for a while. And at some point, I was in a women's circle, and we were talking about things that we've kind of tucked away that we maybe should be sharing with the world. And this book just kind of that story just came right up in front of me. And I said, I made a commitment to that group that I was going to turn it into a book. And so when I came back to start it, I realized it wasn't done. I needed to, it just didn't feel quite done to me. So I struggled for about a month to finish it. And finally, I just, when I let go and tapped back into the simple story, the conversation with the angel, and I wrote the poem that's kind of the transition between part 1 and part 2 of the book. And this poem came through in about 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And it just like reconnected me to the story, to the energy of the angels. And the rest of it then clicked into place. And what I just realized is that there's a part of us that feels like it's not meaningful if it's joyful and simple and fun. That to do something really big and significant, we have to work really hard at it. And somehow I had held that story. And so I just thought that somehow putting this fun, playful story out in the world, I wasn't going to be taken seriously, and my message wouldn't be, it wouldn't be really the full message I was really trying to deliver.
So when you tell the story and the moments where it was flowing and clicking, is that how you would describe what the miracle flow is?
Yeah, somewhat. I really feel like there's multi-layers to that, but one of the, there's a lot of written about being in the flow zone, and for creatives to be in flow is when you're really tapping into your creativity and really allowing it to come through. So that's to me the creative flow. And to me, the miracle flow goes a little bit of a step beyond that, in that we each have something to give. And it's kind of like what I was talking before, is to really tap into our highest purpose, our passion, our joy, and then to do something significant with that in the world. And that might, for some people, that might be going out and starting a big cause to feed the homeless, or to, bring water to women around the world, which is something I'm going to be getting involved in next year. But for some, it might be just taking a plate of cookies to their neighbor when they need it, or, but it's doing something. So it's turning your passion into action. And to me, that's where the real miracle is about flowing, allowing spirit to come through us and flow into a giving act. And what I say is when we're in the miracle flow, there's really no difference between giving and receiving. It's all flow. And it's just constant. It never stops.
Oh, I love that. And, talking about taking your passions and bringing it to the world. And, before the break, we were talking about why it's needed more than ever. And we get stuck in this place. And I'm going to just talk briefly for myself. When I was putting my book out, it was the most difficult process. Every self-doubt, every fear, every expectation, outcome, everything was just like bubbling to the surface and saying, look at me, look at me. And I think that doubt and that fear stops a lot of people from sharing what's on their insides and sharing it out. It's like, how will this be received? Will I be criticized? Am I good enough to do this? And I want to speak on that for a minute because I think that just inhibits so many people from doing that. And the thing is, not everybody needs to be, like you said, the Oprahs of the world or the Deepak Chopras. It could be giving your cookies to the neighbor. But I think that idea of not enoughness gets in our way and prevents us from really being able to share ourselves. But we don't need to have all the answers. We don't have to write the definitive book on how to fix the world or, create the best poem that will join all the factions of the world together. It just needs to be about that heartfelt experience and being able to share that. And so I want to speak a little bit about the doubt and fear that can come in, because I think that stops a lot of people from being able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when you just were talking, I was remembering I sent you a little thing on Facebook that said something like there's 1 billion different ways to make a difference in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We all have them. As you were talking, I was thinking, not only about writing our books, but there are so many people that have written books and then they sit in their garage, or they don't take the next step of sharing. And I've been so guilty of that in the past. I've created so many different beautiful products, and part of them books. I have a poetry book. I have a couple other self-published books that I've done and different things. And then I get done creating it and I move on to the next thing. And in the past, I've always said, oh, well, I'm a creator. I'm not that's my role, is to keep creating. But I think it's also a fear that gets in the way, that somehow we're going to identify with, if people don't embrace our creation, that we are less than. And so I think the big fear that we're not going to be accepted is really big for writers, for all creative people, and probably for all of us. And that, and to me, part of the flow stops when I start thinking that I am this I am this book. Somehow, if people don't like this book, that means they don't like me. And, I know this book isn't for everyone. And I know that it's only a part of the creative, the creative genius that has come through me. It's just a part of it. And when I look at it like I'm trying to sell books, the flow just stops. But when I look at it like this is still part of my creative flow and my miracle flow, and as I share this with people, I'm planting miracle seeds out in the world, and I'm just seeding the possibility for this to touch somebody else and open them, in a way. And that takes me to a whole different place than, oh, this is something, if you don't like it, you're going to reject me. It's just like, here, let's plant all these seeds. Some of them are going to take, some of them won't. And it just becomes kind of a part of the fun and the play of this. And I, when I realized that, that was where I get stopped, I decided to consciously have the sharing of this book be part of the joy for me. The writing's the joy, and let the sharing be the joy too, by really reframing the way I was letting it go out there. So I don't know if I answered what
no,
you had asked
you did.
me.
You exceeded expectation on that. The miracle seeds. No, I love it. And I loved what you said. I heard this TED talk by Elizabeth Gilbert, author of Eat, Pray, Love. And she talked about that idea of creative genius, and that when we think and we identify that this book or this piece of anything that we create is just ours, then our whole selves, our whole identity is like weighs in the balance of, is it going to be accepted or are people going to reject it? And she said, I'm going to, no matter what I do after Eat, Pray, Love, it will never be as big as a success as that. So if I look at it like that was like my defining moment, or that was just mine, that's what drives artists and creatives mad. But if you can look at, the writing and understand that you were just able to tap into that creative genius flow and realize that that's all part of the aspect of the divine, that just isn't yours, it belongs to everybody, that takes some of the pressure off that, this and whatever I create is mine and it is part of my identity. And I think that looking at it from that perspective, and I love the idea of throwing out these like miracle seeds in the world. I love that the people that they're going to take what they want from it anyway. And even though you may write it and have a specific intention, this is what I meant, people based on their experience and all of that are going to read it, and they're going to take from it what they need to take from it, even if that wasn't necessarily your intention. And that's part of the creative genius in the flow. So I just, if you've never seen that TED Talk by Elizabeth Gilbert, all the listeners out there, you should. When we get back, Sora, I want to dive into some of the miracle keys and talk about the way you see forgiveness and all of those little goodies that you have in your book. So we will get back to that and more with Sora Garrett here on Entanglement Radio. We'll be right back.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive, dedicated community. Join Elliot Jollish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jollish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jollish Hour.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
All right, we are back, and you're listening to Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque right here on the OMTimes Radio Network. If you're just joining us today, we have author and visionary Sora Garrett, and we are talking about the subject of her book, The Miracle Keys. So, Sora, in your book, you have several different keys that outline basically, I guess, how to see the miracles in your life, to be in the miracle flow, as we've been talking about. But the one that really stuck out for me was the one of forgiveness, because you kind of take forgiveness out of the box, like you just bust it right open. And you have a very unique way of looking at it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Can you explain forgiveness for us?
Yeah, well, this comes actually from work with a spiritual teacher that I've worked over the years, and we work a lot with that concept. And, most people think that forgiveness has to do with doing something, that we're actually, with our mind or our heart, doing something to forgive, or that God, some being outside will be the one that's doing the forgiving or whatever. But when you break the word apart and put it in its essence of everything is for giving, it's not for taking, it's not for whatever, it's for giving. And then you just think of it again back in this miracle flow. If you think of flow being where the place where giving and receiving is all the same, and that we have this energy that's constantly flowing through us, that we're not really meant to hold on to any of it. It's just all moving energy and moving through. And if we can do that, we stay in the present moment. We stay in a place of just expansiveness. And it's a lot easier to say than to do it, of course. That's why this is the very first key in the book, is because it's my biggest challenge, and probably most of our biggest challenge, and to just really allow, not to be attached to anything. Everything is for the giving. Everything to just let it flow through and not hang on.
I love that.
Yeah. Whether that's a possession or whether that's something that somebody said to us. And actually, it's even for the good stuff. Even letting the compliments and the really things that you could hang on to a compliment, and it could just take you out of the present moment, because you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm so great, and oh, they love this and what, and it takes you out of now. So it's even letting go of the good things. It's not just about letting go of what has harmed us, or that we don't feel good about. So.
Yes, and my class the other day, we were talking about, it reminds me of the same thing. We were talking about mindfulness and the point of following the breath and the feelings. And, it's like a vase of flowers that sits on your table, and just enjoying it, knowing that it's going to eventually, the aroma is going to fade, and the flowers or the petals are going to drop, and the water is going to get all murky, and that just enjoying that experience when it is the experience, and not thinking about, is it going to, I'm not going to bother enjoying this because I know it's going to die or whatever. And that comes, like you said, both the positive and the negative, that this is the experience and have it. And that's part of the flow, is not getting yourself so attached to it. So I love that. One of the things there's this term you use in the book called seriosity, which I just thought was fantastic. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that on the show today. What is seriosity?
Oh, I love to make up words, and that's the creative part of me. I love to make them up. And so I don't know when that came. I've been using that for years now, but it came at one point when I realized that I really, I do take life too serious sometimes. I also have a really playful part, which really comes out in this book and the story. But, I don't know, one time it came through, and it's like seriosity. You think of curiosity killed the cat. Well, seriosity is when we let our seriousness get in the way of our curiosity and our play and our laughter, and our joy. So I don't know, that's the way I use that word.
No, and I love it, because you think about, sometimes I see people who are my age, and they just seem so much older than they are. They feel just so encumbered by life. And so and that's exactly what I thought of when I read Seriosity, just being pulled down in kind of the minutia of life, when it should be lighter and playful and imaginative and full of wonder. And so I really love that. The next thing I wanted to kind of address is you have many different keys, but your master key is generosity. And that's something that you talked about a little bit at the beginning of the show, but I really wanted to explore that a little bit more because generosity, it's been interesting. That word has shown up in my consciousness probably 15 times in the last week. And so I'm like, oh, that to me is just sending off little signals that, you need to explore that more. So why do you believe that that is kind of the master key?
Well, when everything that I've been learning is really about, that nothing shows up for us until we start giving. And it doesn't mean giving from an empty place or an obligation of having, we have this much to give this month to make sure that we're a good human being or whatever. It's just this part that we have something in us. And until we learn how to be generous with what we have, both inside us and that we've been given in our life, until we learn to be generous with it, we're not really showing up fully the way that, that I believe we're intended to be here. And, I just feel like there's so much non-generosity in the world. There's so much selfishness. And, there's even with some of the New Age stuff, I just feel like there's so much focus on the self, and we have to have self-love and self-compassion. And I actually I feel like it's way overdone. And I agree that, we have to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first before we take care of our child or whatever. I do feel like there's an important part there. I feel like we've taken it way too far and it's become way self-serving. And I feel like the world is going to heal when we can learn to become, one, forgiving so that we're allowing everything to flow through, and then joyful about what we are sharing. And that, to me, the core of generosity is when we are so naturally and joyfully sharing it that we don't even know we're sharing it. And that's the kind of generosity I'm really talking about.
And I want to talk about that for a minute because I know so many people who overextend themselves. So when they really need to say no, they say yes. And you had mentioned that not to move from a space of obligation, but where is that line? How do we know the difference between I need, of being generous with our time, with our gifts, our talents, all of that, and, moving from that space of feeling like you have to? Because sometimes, being in service of another, you're doing that even when it's at a detriment to yourself. So how do you find that balance?
Yeah, well, for me, I have to notice my energy. And if I start feeling drained and exhausted, then I know I've gone over the line. And so, more and more my practice is about noticing that all the way through the day so that I can keep my energy high. And if I get to the end of the day and I'm tired, I can be tired in a good way, but not an exhausted way. Then I know I've given from a place of joy and ease and flow and love, and I've let that. But if I'm exhausted and I can't even hardly move to sit down on the couch or, I'm just like checking out, then I've probably come from the wrong energy. And so it's a balance. It's like an ongoing, I don't even say that we try to put our life in balance anymore because we really don't. It really is we can't really ever be in balance. That's why I talk about flow, because it's constantly changing and, you just have to keep noticing it. But I think when we're giving when we feel it coming from joy and we feel happy, then it's usually not going to be pushing us to that place of overwhelm and tired.
No, that makes a lot of sense, because when you think about the word obligation or burden, or, moving from that space, it just feels draining. It feels dense and heavy and contracted. But if somebody says something to you and you feel it in your body and you check and you say, is this something joyful? So I think that that's a really good way to look at things. Another thing that was kind of interesting is the way that you talked about gratitude, because, we hear a lot, like, write down gratitude journals at the end of the day, think of everything that you're grateful for. But you think we need to go beyond something as like a practice as a gratitude journal. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. That's actually, that gratitude section is one of my favorite parts of the book, because it actually taught me something as I was writing it, because it was really like gratitude went from my head, which was the gratitude list. When we think of all the things that we could write down and be grateful for, we're thinking about it, we're writing it down. That's good. That's a starting point. And then when we really, really get gratitude, when we just are broken open by something that we're so grateful for, and then it's our heart that is grateful, and we really feel it on that level. But as I was writing about it, it's like it then went to the next level of being in every cell of my body. And it was like this singing happening when we get to the point that we're not just feeling this deep gratitude, but then we really start seeing everything in the world with miracle eyes, with gratitude eyes, and that's gratitude then is flowing out into the atmosphere around us.
I love it. Well, when we get back, I want to talk about how we create space for miracles, and if you have any tools or techniques that helps us to kind of move into that flow. So we'll talk about that more here in our last segment with Sora Garrett. You're listening to Entanglement Radio. We'll be right back.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio. Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Miriam Knight of New Consciousness Review, inviting you to my new show where I interview the rising stars of the conscious awakening. We'll explore the many faces of consciousness and action and intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Rising Stars Show.
The name is Bond, James Bond.
No, the name is Joe, The Joe Show. And we are returning back for our 9th season here on OMTimes Radio. So tune in every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, on OMTimes.com/mobile. You can take us wherever you go. Yeah!
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle. A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio, IOM-FM.
And we are here in the last segment with Sora Garrett. This segment is brought to you by Hestia Health. It's where we bring it on home, creating calm minds, open hearts, inspired lives. If you want to know more about the Inspired and Empowered or conscious weight loss programs that are starting in December, or just need an intuitive reading or an energy session, you can go to hestiahealth.com and find out more there. So, Sora, like I said, this is Hestia Health is kind of my Hestia is all about, getting the center of yourself. She's the goddess of hearth and home. And so this part of the program, I really like to give my listeners some take-home messages, as well as maybe a tool or technique that they can go and put it in their lives so they can start to connect with the miracle flow. So before we get that, I just wanted to say, in your book, you talk about that we need to create space for miracles in our life. What do you mean by that?
Oh, exactly. Because that's where I was going to go with the tools is space. The more that we open our, we don't have busy schedules all day long. As they're starting to call this white space. There's actually a movement calling put white space in your schedule. Have space in between your events, and that as you create space in your day, in your busy life, you're going to actually open up your brain waves in a way that you're going to notice more things that are happening. And, we're looking at our cell phones, we're looking at our computers, whatever, we're missing a lot of the miracles that are already here in nature around us. I have a story about that in the book, about one time, and I won't share that here, but it was like this real wake-up call for me. It's like we get so busy that we could totally miss something and walk right by it. So space isn't just about open, one of the ways that I use space is the breath, and really breathing in every time that I feel like I'm starting to get a little more tense or whatever. I just use my breath to really bring me back to present. But it's also opening up space on our calendar and opening up space in our physical surroundings. I have kind of a more Zen-like feel because I think clutter takes us away from the joy and the, being open to seeing what's there as well. So.
Oh, I couldn't agree with being more on the clutter and creating the white space movement. I've never heard that before, but I get this very strong visual of looking at my calendar and just having nothing in there. So I think that's fantastic.
Angela, I created this 10 years ago, and I'm recreating it, a visual calendar system for creative people called Create Space for Miracles. And one of the things is you use Post-it notes. So when you get done with your to-do list, instead of having a big long list of crossed off items, you have open space. So,
and that open space isn't to watch TV, is it?
No. Well, it could be if that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, because we rush around, and then you mentioned this earlier, and I talk about this, probably my listeners like, she's going there again, but that we're always available with our phones. And so to take that time to turn it on, do not disturb, and turn it off completely to not be accessible, because your energy does continue to flow to those things. If you're, ding, there's a ding. Oh, I know I have an email. And even if you don't check your email, there's still, your energy will flow to that because you're aware that, somebody posted on your Facebook page or whatever the case may be. But so I think that is such an important tip. And are you an avid meditator?
I am, and I am for bringing meditation into all your day rather than having it be just in the morning, just at night, but to just kind of bring that meditative presence, which to me is, praying is talking to God, meditation is listening to God. And so to be in that space, my practice is to be there more and more during the day. And I wanted to say something about that. the ding from your phone and the different things. There's actually research that says that when you hear the ding, it takes you into the adrenaline part of your brain in the fight or flight zone of your brain and the adrenaline. And one of the practices that I have been using a lot is what we call an oxytocin breath. I learned this from Ellie Drake and the Braveheart movement. And it's about really taking your breath and bringing it all the way through all the cells of your body. And so you take a deep breath in, and then when you release your breath, you release it with a ha sound. That's kind of like, it's like a pleasure ha sound. And that takes you away from the adrenaline into the oxytocin. And that's one of the things that we really need, not just as women, but as a society, to be less in that high-paced adrenaline move. So,
oh, I love that, because I can totally see that when your phone. I actually don't have like Facebook Messenger or anything on my phone because I don't like that app. But I can hear when an email comes in, and I know exactly what you mean. Especially if you're trying to relax, and all of a sudden, oh, who is that? Is that something I need to take care of? I can totally see that would switch you into the more primitive parts of our brain that are instinctual. And so I want to talk for a moment about your Miracle Circle. And so you started holding meetup groups back in 2012, and you decided to start an online version of these grassroots giving circles. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, and it's actually a little bit in transition right now. I'm hoping to have it reset by the first of the year. But there's a movement called giving circles out there, and you can find them if you Google them online. And I have a friend, Sharon, Generosity Circles, and she has something called Change Gangs. And when you come together with a lot of small donations, the idea is that when we bring a lot of small donations together, we can make a little bit more of an impact. And we encourage people to give that think that, well, $10 isn't that much. I really can't make a difference with that. But when you pool $10 with 100 people and it becomes $1,000, you can make, something lasting happen. And so with Sharon's Change Gangs, she is pooling funds and putting it towards specific projects. What I was inspired to do with my Miracle Circles is I love to shine light on other people that are doing good in the world. And one of the things that I have on the Shine blog is I have written about different miracle beacons that I have seen that have been doing good things in the world. And when I started the Everyday Miracle Network and the Miracle Circles, the meetups, what we decided to do is collect these monies and then give them to somebody in the community, what we called a miracle beacon that we felt, kind of the unsung heroes, but a way to give them fuel and remind them, let them know that we believed in what they were doing. And maybe they even needed to use it for a massage or something to kind of fuel back up. But so there was, they could use it however they wanted to. But we wanted to reward and give some energy toward keeping the light flowing and keeping those beacons, doing the good work. And not everybody's meant to be in the trenches, but the people that are there doing the work, I want to keep shining light towards them and really, you touched a deep one in me because that brings tears, because I really want them to, I really believe that small acts of kindness are going on all over the world, and the more that we can keep fueling those things, that's how the world's going to shift. So it's in every one of us.
I couldn't agree more. Well, we only have about a minute and a half left, so I want to give you time to just let people know how they can find your book and find you.
The best way to find my book right now is probably on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and look at the Miracle Keys. So it will come right up, and you can see some good reviews there that that you can add. And it's available in both EPUB and print, but I will say I'm partial to the print version because you can even color in your angels. It has these beautiful graphics that I drew, and they're not quite as big on the EPUB version. You also can go to themiraclekeys.com and get an autographed version for a little bit longer while I have them here, but it's easier for me probably if you go to Amazon. And I'd love for you to have a copy of my book and plant some more miracle seeds around the world.
Well, Sora, I just want to thank you so much for being on the program today and for sharing those seeds and all the work you do. So thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Thanks again for inviting me.
You are welcome. Well, coming up next week, we have Barbara Marks Hubbard on the program, and we're going to be talking about achieving Christ consciousness. And she has written a book where she has examined the Gospels and looked at how not only have they been revolutionary, but how they are evolutionary, and they are the key to our moving forward and as humanity. And so you can hear my show live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern right here on the OMTimes Radio Network. If you need to get a hold of me or you want to learn more about my intuitive readings or conscious weight loss or inspired and empowered programs, you can go to hestiahealth.com. Coming up next on our sister station is Claire Johnson at Equilarium FM, or you can just stay tuned here and hear some OMTimes music. Well, this is Angela Levesque wishing you love and light. I'll see you next week.
Your conscious connection